Today is Thursday, April 22nd, and welcome to the 8:30 show. I'm KJ, and every Thursday night you'll find me here at 8:30 p.m. on YouTube at Metro Conservative Media. Please hit the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. At the same time, I'm also live on Facebook at Metro Conservative Media's page. Please like our page and join the conversation by commenting on this video. Myself and my guests will respond to your comments during the show. This is a show where I chat with various individuals about their conservative journey. Tonight, my guest is longtime community and political consultant Gary Collins.
Thank you so much for having me. Quite the pleasure.
Absolutely, Gary. Welcome to the 8:30 show. I can't believe this is the first time you've been on here.
Yeah, I know. I'm a big fan. I mean, honestly, you talk about up and coming media, and I'm a big fan of it. And you've just done such a remarkable job with this show. You, your producers, a whole team. Just congratulations on just such a beautiful product, and just quite the honor to be here.
Oh, thank you, Gary. That means a lot. Thank you so much. Before we get started, again, this show is about your conservative journey. I always start with a kind of fun, get to know you portion of the show. So basically, it's like a random question and answer segment. Basically, I'll just go through a list of questions, random questions, and then you just answer with the first thing that comes to your mind.
Well, let's do it. Make it wild. Okay. Let's be fun.
Okay. All right. So let's see here. So if you had to choose today between these two people, who would you vote for president? Dan Crenshaw or DeSantis?
Can I say neither?
No, you gotta choose one.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think that the reality really comes down to the fact that I think that the answer to all of our problems in society is to elect populists. I think that, as conservatives, I mean, this is a conservative show, right? At the end of the day, we really do need to focus on electing populists. And I think that, there are quite a few that are out there that I think would be fantastic that nobody's really talking about. People who can reemerge, like a Rick Perry. Mike Pence, honestly, it seems like recently has kind of been throwing his name around here and there,
Yeah.
So.
If you had to choose, you have to choose. This is quick
Yeah,
answer.
what's my choices again?
Dan Crenshaw and Ron DeSantis.
Ron DeSantis.
Okay. So next one. What is your most unpopular opinion?
Yeah. I got quite a few of those.
But what would you think is the one that comes to your front of mind, your most unpopular opinion?
Look, I think that really it comes down to the fact for me that, politically speaking, I think the social issues, personally issues relating to women, Republican Party is on the wrong side of.
Okay.
And I hear it time and again. I think that that's one of the most unpopular opinions that I keep hearing time and time again, that I keep getting bashed at all over the place.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. So next one or the other. Get the vaccine or natural immunity?
Natural immunity, man. I mean, bring on the immunity from day one. I was a big fan that, unfortunately, I think that the big thing is we just got to push forward. I do think that there's a place for a certain line of the population to get the vaccine, but for me, I'm not quite sure that I'm going to.
Okay. Winter or summer? Which do you prefer?
I'm such a politician, I will say this. I love summer. I'm a beach boy. I like to go lay on the beach, get my sun on, and I'm all about the beach. So bring on the summer.
Okay. All right. Last one. What is a challenge you would never want to face again?
That strikes quite a few things. I think that the biggest thing, tonight I know that we're talking about who is Gary Collins and who, that's the joy of your show is who are these people in the conservative movement locally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, being a little exposed, probably the biggest challenge for me was as an adult experiencing my parents going through a divorce. That was very challenging. It's still something, I mean, it's been probably half a decade now, but still something I deal with. I never ever want to go through that debacle again.
Okay. All right. And the last one, actually, I missed one. What's something? I'm sorry. What quality do you?
I drew you off on that answer. Got too heart to heart there for a second.
This is the last one. What quality do you value most in your friends?
Honesty and loyalty, but if I have to
pick
one, loyalty for sure.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Loyalty. All right. Okay, so that finishes that. Just kind of a quick, fun question and answer segment, so the audience can kind of get to know you outside of politics. All right. So our next segment that I have here is just to talk about your conservative journey. So if you could just share with us when you became a conservative, have you always been conservative? And how was that like? What was the issue that, if you haven't always been conservative, what issue actually, or what moment made you become a full-fledged conservative?
You see, I'm kind of a full-bred, when it comes to the conservative movement as a whole. I mean, the reality is, I remember when George W. Bush was president, I was a teenager. And, I was one of the few people, it seemed, who loved George W. Bush at that time. And I actually started my political journey as an intern for then Lieutenant Governor Michael Steele. He was running actually for the United States Senate. And I was actually his student for Steele Coalition Director. And that was my first experience really with the Maryland conservative movement, the Maryland Republican movement. And it was a joy. And actually, it was fun because I was able to, speaking of my parents going back to that, I was able to actually go ahead and convince them to change from traditional blue dog Democrat household into a pretty right-leaning Republican household. And it really was then seeing what real true conservatism is about. Now, Michael Steele, he's still my boy, but he's swayed a little bit over the years. But at the end of the day, that was my beginning. I think that as I grow older, I start to learn that really conservatism is about the individual. It's about freedom of choice. It's about individuals having the ability to live and pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness throughout their days. So, it's interesting to me because I remember when I was a young man, I was hard right on pretty much everything. And then as I've gotten older, I became even harder right on issues dealing with finance and economy, building up a strong job market so everybody has the opportunity to partake in the system. The foundation of what it really means, I feel, frankly, to live the American dream. But then, with some of the social issues, I've kind of taken a back seat. I became a bit more moderate. I wouldn't say liberal, but certainly a little bit more moderate with social issues, because to me, at the end of the day, it really is the pursuit of happiness, and that is completely different per person. And I think that when we really broach that topic and we really want and allow people to be who they are, that is the essence of what the Republican Party and, frankly, what conservatism is all about.
Okay. And let me jump back a little bit there. You mentioned your family was Blue Dog Democrats.
Yeah.
And you convinced them to become conservative Republicans.
Right.
Do you recall what issue or what was it that just changed them, that just made them decide to change all of that and become conservative?
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize I actually am the product of a mother who was 17 years old when she had me, and my dad was 21. And so it was quite the struggle. I've seen what it's like to have both parents, frankly, not eat, to be able to put food on the plate for me to eat. And it was the issue, I think, for my family when my dad actually launched a business multiple businesses, but namely his first business, his first endeavor to become self-employed. He became a developer. And so when he started making the real money, he's being negatively penalized for being successful. And to me, it just didn't really make a whole lot of sense that we have a system that penalizes people for being successful. We should actually encourage business owners to be able to expand their companies. If there's anything that we should be doing everything in our capability to allow the market to promote job opportunities, and for people who want to make that investment, give them the opportunity to do so. So really for my family, it was a situation of, they always were told, the left is for the working man. The liberals and the Democrats are for those who, have calluses on their hands and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And then my dad realized, and my mother realized, that that's not the case at all. The Democrats are really all about taxing and redistributing your wealth and penalizing those who are successful.
Okay. All right. And to come back to kind of bring it all forward, you're an urban conservative. You live in the city. Okay. Wow. Yeah. And so that's one thing that I wanted to kind of talk about, if we could, as far as the Republican Party making inroads into the into the urban community. What do you feel is the best way to win over urban conservatives in Maryland? And
sure.
Young man also.
Absolutely.
Young and urban.
Absolutely. And not too young. I'm in my 30s. Spray tan kind of convinces people that, I'm younger than I really am. But at the end of the day, I think it's twofold. In Baltimore, we have really two distinct groups of people. Okay. We have a segment of society that is growing exponentially. And that is people who look like myself, who are young, who are professionals, who are coming into the city because they love urban life. I've been in Baltimore literally from day one of entering into college. I fell in love with Baltimore and haven't left. I've been here for almost 2 decades. At the end of the day, there are countless people like me. If you go to any area through Fells Point to downtown where I currently reside, up north through the Charles Street corridor. The reality is those areas continue to grow. And as a result, those individuals are also folks who are earning a decent living and frankly are pretty moderate to slightly right-leaning. We see with Governor Hogan, he actually won those people over hand and foot here in Baltimore City. Namely, we actually...
And when the people you're talking about, if we want to be specific, are we talking about young white guys, or are you saying are you distinguishing between race?
Well, no, I'm not a big fan of distinguishing folks based off the color of their skin. I think that we're all, Baltimore residents and Marylanders, number one.
And I only ask that because, the majority of Baltimore is of people of color. So I just want to make the distinction there.
Yeah, and I push a little bit on that. I think, and I mentioned that there's 2 segments. So the first segment is definitely millennials. I think it's the age segment. And that segment is quite diverse, frankly. The community that I live in, the building that I live in, I have everybody from rich to poor, from black to white to Hispanic, people who don't even speak English, immigrants, native born. So I think that the community that I'm part of in the city, and the community that I see that is an influx, are those who are the young urban professional. They used to call us the yuppies back in the day, if you remember. I'm sure you're in the same age group really as me, so I'm sure you remember that term, the yuppies, right? So I think that group of individuals are less entrenched and a bit more open-minded towards the message that we share as Republicans. But the reality is they also don't vote. Why don't they vote? Because guess what? Nobody has actually reached out to them and said, get out, vote, and actually even engaged in some sort of conversation and got them involved in the process. So I think that if we as conservatives engage that segment of people, we'll see historical wins like we saw in the Trump presidency. Honestly, those individuals, there were a number of folks here in Baltimore who were gung-ho for Bernie Sanders. They were as far left as possible. And then what did we see after the President Donald Trump won the nomination? We saw that he started talking about the issues, because he started listening, talking about the issues that those under the age of 45 cared about. Mm-hmm. Trans-Pacific Partnership, jobs, economy. I mean, at the end of the day, I know that there are countless people that I talk to on a daily basis under age 45 who are struggling, we're overeducated, and we're underemployed. And so the people who will absolutely answer the call, and the party that will be in power for the next 20 or 30 years, will be the party that addresses the concern that millennials have in urban America of how do we allow and how do we promote great job opportunities for the overeducated and the underemployed, and how do we pump money into the system so everybody gets a fair shot.
Okay. Now, I wanted to kind of go back to as far as being an urban dweller. And we are in one thing, the Republican Party we have seen with President Trump, former President Trump, is he made inroads into the Black community.
Absolutely.
And Latino community.
Absolutely.
People didn't believe it, but he increased that demographic as far as votes for him.
Historical numbers.
I want to read something to you, a quote that was given by a political consultant, Malik Abdul. Mm-hmm. And he's talking about growing the Republican Party within urban communities, African American communities. And I want to get your thoughts on this. He says, he was on OWN News Network. He said, "We are a voting demographic just like any other. Far too often, the party allows these loud, provocative voices to come out and make these statements about the Black community that we find offensive. So if people in the party, me being a Republican and other Republicans on the panel, if we're coming to you and saying, hey, we need your support on this, but you have to actually chill on that language when you have to listen to people who are telling you this, if your goal is to increase participation in the Republican Party or get more Blacks to even consider being part of the Republican Party. You have to do the same thing that you would do to farmers in the Mississippi. Right. You're not going to say something offensive to flyover country. So we are a constituency just like any other. And until the party realizes that and gives us space and to support us in those efforts when we push back." So what are your thoughts on that? So basically he's stating...
Wow, frankly.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a profound statement that, to be brutally honest, I 110% support. I mean, we look at, we look at the social justice movement around the country that's occurring. And it wasn't too terribly long ago that I remember that and I would say the vast majority of Republicans who are leaders locally and around the country, many of us took a knee. I did. I have no shame. And the reality is because we realize that, Black lives do matter and all lives do matter. They don't have to be enemies. These things can coexist. And I think that when we as a party realize that the battle really isn't about Black or white, rich or poor, frankly, urban or suburbanite, and really the battle, the true battle here that we're fighting is about the elites who want to maintain power and don't really care about anyone else. When we realize that they are the trouble because they're the ones who are holding the money, the wealth, the ability for people to prosper in society, they are the people that we should all collectively unify to battle. When we realize that they are the problem and that everything else isn't, I think that we will really see a new dawn in this American Republic. And I think that we saw that in probably the first couple of years of the President Trump's administration, and things changed. I think that we have to be comfortable with saying as Republicans that there is not a seat at the table, but there's a seat at the head of the table of folks within the inner cities throughout our country. And that's the only way that we're going to grow. Because here's the reality. The Democrats, frankly, are taking minority communities, whether Black, whether Asian, whether Hispanic, for granted. And the reality is they're not doing a dang thing. At the end of the day, we're doing things like opening our border. We're literally transporting people to 5-star hotels at our border. And right 5 minutes away from me, I have folks who are literally barely able to eat. And so you can only keep people down for so much. And my message is that I think that we as Republicans, we have the answer. As conservatives, we have the answer. It's all about economic opportunity, investing in meaningful public education, and decentralizing this elite power structure that exists. And when we as Republicans learn that that's the answer to get folks elected, game over. Game over.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one thing you said about the elite power structure, can you talk about how the Democrat Party pushes that and supports that elite power structure?
Absolutely. I think there's quite a few ways. I mean, unfortunately, I think that the way that elites or anybody, it's the old cliche, right? You divide and you conquer. So when folks are still divided and when we are battling each other over things that are important, but at the end of the day, when we fail to realize that we each other are not the enemy, that it is actually the system, and that there are individuals in charge of the system that are doing nothing to fix it, that's the problem. Does that make sense? So what the Democrats do, I mean, I look at Baltimore City, for example. I have to take it back to local. I look at the school system here in Baltimore. We have here locally a school CEO, director of the school system, whatever fancy title she wants to go ahead and call herself. This lady is making over $300,000 a year. And wait, the schools are failing. The communities that she claims that she represents, she's doing literally nothing but eating extravagant lunches, going on nice cruises, taking her office and doing these things on our dollar as taxpayers here. She's doing nothing to do that. And so how do you maintain power? Well, unfortunately, you literally have to push down the little guy and keep him down to a certain degree. I think that really the true element of leadership is encouraging people to be better than you and giving them the tools and the resources and giving them the capital investment so that a next generation is able to go ahead and break the cycle. And I see so many times in communities like Baltimore, it is generation after generation of the same members of the same old families that continue to hold the power. I'm not going to mention names here in the city, but I'm sure that anybody who is familiar with any urban community in America will see that their current city council member may have had a granddaddy who is a mayor or city council member who held that seat. So how does that happen? You keep people down. And we have to break up that monopoly.
Right. And one thing you mentioned as far as within the city, one buzzword we hear and see all the time, I mean, Mayor Scott's been talking about it, is equity. Equitable vaccination, equitable community development. What do you think about that as far as when we talk about the difference between equity versus equality and how that relates within Baltimore and actually within everywhere, because it's all over the place now.
Yeah. I it's funny because I think that a lot of people don't even know what these terms mean.
No, I know.
I think what's the term, asynchronous, whatever it was, learning. I'm an educated guy. I went to college. I make a good living for myself. I don't even know what that word means.
I know.
This word, and they're like, whoa. So, it's the same thing with some of these buzzwords where, it just, I think that the left is so keen. They're very good at marketing, right? So
Right.
they're so keen on looking at these buzzwords and trying to attach, it's a complete blanket, and allowing people to attach whatever it is that they want to these buzzwords. So I think that the reality is, what is Mayor Scott doing, particularly with the vaccine distribution? What is he doing to actually ensure that those who don't have access to internet, don't have access to reliable phone systems and other things throughout this city, black, white, orange, purple, pink, whatever you are, what is he doing to make sure that folks know how to sign up? I know for a fact, look, I'm nobody special, but I get calls because my number's out there. People Google and they're like, how can I get a vaccine? I'm like, I don't know. So, like, why are you calling me? I have no idea. So the reality is it really is a situation where, people want to throw words around when they've actually done a whole lot of nothing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have a comment. It says, do these buzzwords really mean anything or simply marketing?
I think it's simply marketing. I mean, at the end of the day, I was raised with the mentality if you have to put your money where your mouth is, right? And, again, we see time and time again throughout the city of Baltimore and throughout the country, frankly, that communities of color are not getting access that, frankly, I would have access to. Why? Because guess what? Even here in Baltimore, there isn't really a public transit system. So how can you go ahead and get around the city if you have a job on the other side of the city where the jobs really are? How are you able to get over there? You're not. And so I have better access because of a little bit of privilege, absolutely. But I have access to those things that if we really want to break up the cycle, I think that we really have to make meaningful investments and put our money where our mouth is to show what real true equity is. And I see that there's one party that's been in existence for 60 years. They haven't made meaningful investments in public transportation. They haven't made meaningful investments in education. They haven't made meaningful investments in economic development. They haven't done anything. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. So we continue to talk about equity, 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 equity. But what have we done? What have they done? And they haven't done a single thing. I think it's clever marketing, but at the end of the day, there's nothing to show for it. Results matter in the world that we live in.
I agree. And I was just thinking about this the other day when I was watching the show during the Derek Chauvin trial. Yeah. And they're talking about these reforms across the country in different cities. And when you look at it, including Minneapolis, including Baltimore,
sure,
these cities that are going through where they're claiming that they're having this police brutality and reform is needed, and they've been democratically controlled for years and years.
Sure. They create this system, and this is what's so interesting about, and I go back to this whole elite mentality that's out there. The reality really exists that, bottom line, these folks created the environment that they're now trying to fix. So why are we not holding them accountable? Why are we not holding them accountable as people? This is not, most of these issues that I see, it really isn't a black or white issue. It's not a Republican or Democrat issue. These are human issues. And the thing is really, it is a philosophical issue. So we can go ahead and basically try to give ourselves a pass if you're a liberal, or we can actually go ahead and try to think pragmatically and logically that if something doesn't work, nix it and try something else. As a business person, that's what I do. If there's a process, whether it's a revenue process or a sales process or whatever, that doesn't work, why would I go ahead and continue to do it?
Mm-hmm. That's right. All right. Well, Gary, we are at the end of the show. I could stay on here. I say this so many times, but I could stay on here for another 30 minutes. We have one more question. It says, how do we Republicans inspire our differences, get along, and move forward in progress in the city?
Yeah, I think that Mr. Anderson there, if that's who I'm reading,
yep,
who stated that, yeah. I think he meant instead of inspire, in spite of. in spite of our differences, perhaps, is what he's meaning. And I'm going to answer the questions if that is how it's termed. I think that the reality is with anything, and I have seen this, I've been around literally for almost 2 decades in political activism and consulting and in politics as general. And what I see is there's a revolving door, because people, when their egos, their fragile egos get hurt, they disappear. And the problem is we as a society can never advance unless we go ahead and realize that it is a collective whole. It's important to maintain our individualities, certainly, but the reality is none of us are right 100% of the time. And we have to humble ourselves and realize that really sometimes you have to give up a little bit to get. And,
that is the phrase of the week.
That is literally my concluding statement. You got to give up a little bit to get.
You got to give up a little bit to get. Man, that really speaks to me. That speaks to me. Wow. Okay. Well, we again, like I said, thank you so much. We are at the end of the show. Where can people find you, Gary? Are there any events you like to share, or anything you want people to know about? Please share if you have anything.
Absolutely. I certainly, first and foremost, again, I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to be on your show to chat about what I feel are vital issues that are pressing our community, that are pressing the conservative movement, and pressing, frankly, humanity as a whole. So thank you, KJ, for what you do and for your whole team. Definitely a distinct honor. Definitely check me out. I'm always around, definitely active in the community. You can check me regularly, being a contributor with Fox 45, locally here in Baltimore. You can also check me out online at facebook.com/Gary and Collins. Love to engage in conversation any and all times. And also, I'm not a big Twitterer, but feel free to check me out on Twitter. Send me a message. Tell me you love me or hate me, whatever. I get fan mail and hate mail, whatever works. But twitter.com/real Gary Collins. So again, I just am so grateful for you. Keep up the good work, and I look forward to coming back soon and continuing our conversation.
Excellent. Yes, absolutely, Gary. Well, again, as I mentioned, that wraps up this episode of the 8:30 show. Like, share, and leave a comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Metro Conservative Media. We love to get your feedback. I hope to connect with you all again next Thursday at the same time. Wishing you warm days and starry nights. Good night.